We're live. Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Marissa Yiu, lead curator of this project Design Trust Critically Homemade, and thrilled to be hosting in partnership with Dezeen this live relay talk featuring participants from our micro initiative exhibition now launching live in Hong Kong. And it's this really exciting moment for us to share and build community resilience. There's been extraordinary challenges I assume everyone has been facing during these times, and there is a real insistence and drive of each of us to connect. So we're really excited to be part of this Dezeen dialogue, and we'll be sharing with my screen right now. And I have Aric Chen, who's my co-moderator right here. Do you want to say a few words?
No, just thank you for having me, Marissa. I've been hearing about this project for a long time, and it's really exciting to see the results.
Great. So I'm going to pull up my screen and share a little bit about what we've been doing, our foundation's purpose, and also the participants that are part of this live relay. I hope you can all see my screen right now. A few months ago, we've been looking very much internalization of this process and have launched this super exciting micro initiative to bring together prototypes from our community to respond to a collective brief. Today, again, we in partnership with Aric Chen, who's an extraordinary curatorial leader in the field based in Shanghai. And I hope you can all see my screen well. And he's currently based in Shanghai, working as an independent curator with museums, biennials, and a professor of practice and director of the curatorial lab at Tongji Dashi in Shanghai, of College of Design and Innovation, and also serves on our Design Trust Greater Bay Area Council for many years. So excited to have Aric Chen here, co-moderating the event. And with the next, and I would say extremely exciting event, we have invited designers, part of our community and beyond, Elaine, Xavier, Julie, Jesse, Joel, Adam, Michael Young, Chiang of Collectives, Sky Utaka, Clara Brito, Solwem of Sticky Line, Annie, Lydia, Nicholas from the University of Hong Kong, Frederick, Guri, Wendy, Natasha, Manuel, Shufan from AAM, also based now in Shanghai, Aaron in Hong Kong, and Anishka, who's been traveling all over China to participate in this event. A little bit about our background, a nonprofit organization, a registered charity founded in 2007. We've been producing and supporting grants and fellowships and think tank studios to encourage public debate and responsive funding to support various design disciplines. And what you see is a real provocation about questions relating not just to Hong Kong, but our region, on living, lifestyle, domesticity, public space, and involving a larger community of design around urgent questions from what is heritage of design in Hong Kong, Chinese architecture, and how we can innovate. We'll have hints of this afterwards with Julie and Jesse's sharing on a recent program that we partnered with some heritage projects revitalized in Hong Kong, and a Dancing Phoenix program in partnership with various partners in Hong Kong. And of course, with the foundation's past programming, we've been involved in bringing various communities of design and architects together to really look at archives and projects that could be building new knowledge in our region. So now to Design Trust Critically Homemade. This has been an extraordinary big process for our community and nonprofit to rethink and look at the pandemic, not only just internally in Hong Kong, but also how to build resilience within the international and local community of our region. So back in April, we did a large survey amongst our communities and sent out a collective brief to invite designers from not only our foundation, but also participants from various communities to create a self-challenge in 3 weeks to create a homemade prototype object and fabricate it in collaboration with other creatives. The object could and should be addressing functional, social, educational, environmental needs, and could also rethink the target audience to be intergenerational and possibly held in your own hand. Of course, there's some design prototypes that have gone beyond the parameters, but has also allowed us to rethink the role of design in object making and how does the object foster play and social well-being. I'm going to share a short video right now, and my colleague Naomi will be bringing this on, and also to just communicate the journey that we have been going through. So Naomi, are you ready?
Design Trust Critically Homemade is a response to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the design community and beyond, and conceptualized to encourage creatives to critically examine the drastic changes in the world and participate in the formation of a collective response to these new norms. We are lucky to have Hong Kong-based designers, regional friends, and international collaborators continue to share their innovative prototypes that are both emotional, sustainably driven, and inspirational, showing community strength and creativity. This micro-initiative expresses innovation, reflection, lightness, and hope, represented by the transformation of our Design Trust D from its typical dark blue hue to a multicolored rainbow of hope. This rainbow is a message of optimism and resilience that parallels the intention of this micro-initiative, where small acts of making and gestures of generosity expand to more support within and around communities. Design Trust Critically Homemade.
Thank you to all of you, and I will quickly bring this next slide on board. It's been an extraordinary process of understanding community resilience and the powerful, the collective community around design. And you know, what's been a fascinating process as the prototypes were trickling in, How could we also orchestrate categories and themes amongst the 76 prototypes we have coming on board? And what has been really fascinating is also to see a sense of connection, but also prototypes and objects that challenge categorization. At the same time, our foundation, of course, it's 7 years old, more actively in the past, although it's 13 years of building up the registered charity. We realized an exhibition at an apt time brought all these prototypes that we've just launched now at an exhibition at Soho House, Hong Kong as a venue partner. As we were bringing on board a lot of these questions, the themes that came alive were relating to culturally Hong Kong and beyond, how we understand or misunderstand perhaps city design or development of design. There's a few objects prototypes that have been focused and themed around everyday challenges of COVID-19. Quite a few looking at wellness and internalization. A few architects and designers have also been really receding back into the interiors and looking also at how to develop a sense of peace, of moment of pause, and reassess values. And there are a couple of really fascinating prototypes, even we'll hear from designers looking at the future of upcycling and the role of the environment. And a large part we'll see would be a few on education, questions on inspirational intergenerational play from home. And you know, I'm sitting here in my studio whilst our colleagues are also at the exhibition, live streaming this at another venue. We realize there's so much about our city and the value of where we're coming from. Florian and Christine have produced a really beautiful response as a prototype to this Design Trust Critically Homemade project. And behind me, I actually displayed one of them. They've been a big part of our foundation and has been looking around Hong Kong in some districts where stores have closed because of the COVID-19, and have been collecting gravel and debris, reconstituting them from materials from past shows. And a lot of the foundation's work on the research of terrazzo building into a message of hope and optimism through their prototype, which is the Hong Kong brick, Hong Kong Sec. At the same time, we have really fantastic typographers involved, Mandonian Chen, who's actually now climbing the mountains, respecting the elderly through a festival of intergeneration values in Hong Kong. But he wanted to ask myself to share on behalf of his work today. And he has recently produced a beautiful, published a book on Beiwei Kaishu, one of the most incredible type and typography fonts presented as a representation of Chinese Hong Kong culture. And he's produced a really wonderful expression of homemade cookies. Originally angry cookie, ok bang, which is a way to express his emotions. And as we move forward in the last few months, he's also produced a whole new series of Chinese cultural cookies, which we've now partnered with a social enterprise to hopefully sell and support each other through micro-giving strategies. We've also had this extraordinary, in the video you just saw, M+ Design Trust Fellow, Hugh Davis, who's been researching the last 30 years of how Hong Kong has been represented in video games, and his prototype was a response to physicalizing the virtual space into ink architectural stamps as a prototype, partnering with his partners in Melbourne, China, Hong Kong, Japan. And it's been a really extraordinary way to bring the community together. At the same time, we've had a lot of projects on pause. We are working quite hard on a stakeholder engagement process and building parks for local communities in our region. This one is in Tsuen Wan district, surrounded by a high level of kind of low income subdivided flat areas, but we've been developing a lot of micro-community parks and playgrounds. Despite this has been on hold, it's rebooting as we're emerging from the third wave of lockdown, and the designers have also been participating in our critically homemade project. Chen, a social designer working a lot with local communities, has been frustrated with disposable waste delivery. That's been a lot of food delivery going on in Hong Kong, and she's made her own, bake her own cutlery edible fork and spoon project prototype. Jonathan Mack, also participating in the parks, has also been stuck at home and creating a very fascinating ergonomical graphic expression of don't cross your legs as we're all sitting working from home. Chris Choi working with all his collaborators on playful, expressive wood cutting modules. And now we're pleased and excited to have a community show at the Soho House venue partner, where you have artists, architect, designers such as Casey Wong on the right, has been looking at issues of consumption and has extraordinarily expressed this through daily foods that we've been probably consuming, but also questioning values of health and communication. And before I introduce the designers, it's been really overwhelming, but also inspirational, how we can all critically reflect on our foundation and also our future purpose in the region. And what you see today is a whole series of touch points of our community coming together. And it's been really an amazing process to see 132 designers contribute their time crafting as a way to express creativity and questions and provocations from home. This is the show right now. Even Remco House, David Jeanetton has allowed us to re-look at our archives and showcase this beautiful green fabric, the hyper-environment fabric. We have these extraordinary organic tables from the masterminds of Archigram also contributing and upcycling them in a way to showcase the community spirit. And the 76 prototypes presented throughout. These are other designers. Please come back. I'll share a little bit more towards the end with Aric Chen. And one other designer, artist, architect who's been mentoring a lot of our younger designers has produced a beautiful series of photographs throughout Hong Kong as he's been exploring nature again. And again, thank you. It's been highly emotional, but also inspiring to see our community come together, and now virtually with the zine. Thank you for this. And Elaine, I'm going to welcome you as our first speaker. And again, thank you very much to all of you for participating in this very meaningful initiative. And over to you, Aric Chen, afterwards. Thank you. And I believe I will stop sharing, and Sufan will be bringing up the next series of slides. And Elaine, could you unmute, and each designer, feel free to introduce who you are briefly, your background, and your affiliation, and what you've innovated within 2 to 3 minutes. That'd be wonderful. So, Elaine, you're first on the spot.
Hi everyone, thank you Marissa for the wonderful introductions. And I'm Elaine. I'm trained as a weaver, and I've been with Design Trust since 2015. Design Trust is, well, I moved to Hong Kong since 2015, and I've started my research journey with Design Trust, looking into how do we modernize indigenous group in China in terms of the textiles, and allow it to become more modern and accepted in our modern society, and through women empowerment. So this particular program of Critical Homemade, it's very special. It's a rather short-term and immediate response compared to the rather long-term research that we've been looking into. A little bit of background of what we've been doing in the past year as a Design Trust Future Studios mentee. I've been involved in a heritage as innovation program with Design Trust, looking into how do we recreate a object for a Grade 1 listed building in Hong Kong, and a whole Pan mentioned. So I was very privileged that I was in collaboration with Thai Pink Carpet, with 65 years of experience carpet tufting. It's very exciting for a weaver, you know, to able to work with masterminds in such area. So after making the 6 meters wide, super big handmade carpet, I felt that was one of the most memorable sort of project and research topic I had in 2019, and I really want to bring this sort of uplifting momentum to 2020, since we're experiencing so much of a negative sort of response. I want to make this super cheerful and only bring the happy memory. So for Critical Homemade, I received a brief during my quarantine period when I returned from the Philippines. So I thought, what was the most sort of accessible for me immediately? What's my weaving skills, since I trained as a weaver, and I designed something on the computer, and I felt education is really important part of a design journey as a designer, something I want to sort of influence as the next generation within the education program. So I designed these object that we can 3D print, and so then these can be sort of open platform files for anyone from school that they can print, and they can use it as their sort of forms and shape to weave, and something that's really handmade. It's something we've been neglected for a long time. But in terms of the sort of object, why is it a fan? That's also related to how we've been sort of stranded at home for a long time, and I felt we need to reconnect to nature. And one, in Hong Kong is relatively warm, and so when the longer we stay indoor, the longer AC we've turned on, and so we have turned a lot of AC. It's a bit environmentally unfriendly, even though when we go hiking we have a lot of little mobile plastic fans with us that use a lot of lithium battery. So I really want to go back to our roots. I remember my granny, he used to hold a handheld fan for years, and rather than turn on AC. So I really want to celebrate on this little bit of my childhood memory mixed with what I really love with handmade, but yet being a bit more practical rather than a completely hand woven with rattan, which is a bit impractical. Through 3D printing would be the obvious route, and something that we can actually carry on and carry on printing for schools, and if we do have this sort of files to share, because I think handmade practice is a really important thing that all the kids have not been experiencing, since there's so many digital platforms and amazing touchscreens available. So tactility was one of the things that I really want to bring it back into celebration. And one more thing, and of course, one of the best part of this handmade object is also in collaboration with Thai Pink Carpet, because we have actually created 9 different varieties of interactive yarn for the 6 meters carpet, and we have a few leftovers, and we thought it would be a really good opportunity to create the miniatures carpet for the fan, for everyone to have a little bit hand-on experience to it.
Great, thank you, Elaine. I think we're meant to be democratic to all speakers, right, within the 3 minutes. So, Xavier, are you there?
Hi, can you hear? Okay, hi, thanks Marissa. And I'm Xavier, running a studio called Candle, and we have a workshop factory located in Sai Kung, which is a town in Hong Kong. It is also where I was born and grew up. Since I moved my factory back here 4 years ago, I found that I'm doing something repeating the history of Sai Kung, because in the 30s, 40s, there used to be a very, it is a very remote town. There's no transportation connecting to the town. So there's a, like a, its own ecosystem of industry in Sai Kung, where there are toothbrush factory, and according to my mom, there's even a candle factory 50 years ago here, but there's no any documentary of that. So so in during the COVID period in our production, we found that there are there's a problem. There are a lot of material cut off because of the logistic. There are lots of delayed of material. So we are trying to like research about what I can do like with the local raw material of Sai Kung, because it is a place full of natural resources. And I figure out there are like a Hakka lady who made like container for wine. During that period, they used local clay to make containers. So that inspired me to create some containers based on the material closest to me. And in the image, you can see that is a work last year with a Design Trust Future Studio in the Hopa Mansion. Is one of the two works. There's a dry plant wall, which has been kept in my studio after exhibition. And I found that this is the closest raw material to me because it's just behind me. And I try to make it into a container. And we work with a ground root studio who is specialized in upcycling material and press into different products. And we work with them and use some bioplastic to press into a very nice container. And for the candle, which is exhibited there. And this is a beginning of, it's a very simple product, but it's beginning of my research about what we can do with the local material and local production and building some local industry ecosystem. Yep.
Great, thank you, Xavier. Julie and Jesse.
Hi.
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 Hi, here we are.
Julie,
Hi.
Jesse.
We're streaming live from our studio in Taiwan. We are a ceramic designer and a ceramic artist working as a duo and a husband and wife. So Pocket Garden, oh my, this is coming from a year-long research with Design Trust last year on the Tiger Balm Gardens and looking at, looking at how the power of Scholars Rocks can inspire traveling into mountains, into valleys, into streams.
Oh, wait, no, I'm just disconnected.
And oh, I'm hearing someone else. So Scholars Rocks have this power to take you away, and we wanted to reflect on that as we are stuck at home, longing for nature and for travels. We've come up with these little miniature scholarly rocks that are made out of recycled popcorn, recycled Rice Krispies, what else? Recycled porcelain, anything that can burn off, recycled typing yarn from our project last year with typing, that will burn off in our kilns and actually leave us with this beautiful texture, mimicking the beautiful textures that you look at when holding a scholar's rock and giving each rock a beautiful personality?
When we were making the larger stools, we were trying to come up with a material that was lightweight yet strong. So in this research, we started to explore this idea of sort of a honeycomb or like a bone marrow that could create a lot of strength. But in doing so, we really fell in love with the texture that really reflected the scholar stones of traditional Chinese rock gardens.
So each of these rocks is actually made in such a way that it actually can snap on a Lego brick, as you can see in the picture and as I'm showing there. And they're meant to be snapped onto wheels, therefore, or onto any Lego brick to encourage building of gardens, building of sceneries, beautiful Chinese gardens that are meant to be a place of escape for young children and adults alike to learn about Chinese landscape paintings and build as a community and together, well, gardens and rocks and.
Well, the legacy of the Chinese garden is so rich and beautiful and goes back such a long time. It's really important that younger generations have an opportunity to learn and appreciate this as part of their own culture, or even if they're not in that culture, to appreciate a different way of looking at nature and a way to escape the home during lockdown, to imagine walking through mountains, to journey, to travel. And I think this sense of play and a sense of connection to culture and literature and poetry is really important for us all to really hang on to and to pay attention to.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you, Julie and Jesse. Well, I'm sure we'll cycle back to you. And Joel and Queenie, please join us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joel.
And I'm Queenie.
We work between art and architecture, and we received a seed grant from the Design Trust last year. And we're currently based in Boston, in the USA. So this is our work for the initiative, which is called I Love You, but I Need to Keep a Safe Distance. So this is a compact measuring device that allows users to follow the advice of different governments and health organizations for social distancing. So it has extendable lengths of 1.5, 1.8, and 2 meters, which are metrics we saw being consistently used by these different organizations when recommending how we should social distance from each other. But we made the observation that, or as the title implies, these metrics literally define the interaction of our bodies and the success of our human relationships. So we're kind of in a position where the differing legislation of the territories we now live in have a significant impact on our ability to physically and verbally communicate with each other, and therefore our emotional well-being.
Yeah, I think in this work, we really just want to address the emotional aspect, because we do observe that, anxiety, uncertainties have been really escalating during the pandemic, and we don't want to turn a blind eye to it. So in this, we're trying to use make a bit more irony to squeeze 4 different social distancing measures, and we never know which one is the truth or which one is accurate, into one device and pick quite a humorous name. So it's like, I love you, but sorry, dude, I need to keep a safe distance. So we try to, channel negativity into a more positive emotions. And also we try to think about objects to be more beyond functionality. We believe that our objects should be able to collect, to kind of assemble collective memories and feelings. And we really appreciate this prototype exhibition, because we feel like our objects is not pretty much like marketable or something that can go into, to be made as a product. But at the end, this exhibition really allowed our objects to become like a meditative space for people to come together to just share feelings during this pandemic. So we hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. You are under 3 minutes. Clara, I believe, I don't know where you are, but you're in an airport, which is shocking to us. Are you here, Clara?
Can you hear me? Hello. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Hello. Thank you so much, Marissa, and everyone. It's a pleasure. Now I am in Paris, and I'm just like with a few moments to go to Macau. So just to introduce myself briefly, so I'm a fashion and product designer. This is my academic background, and I've been living in Macau and Zhuhai during the last 16 years, and now I'm more in the process of transition living between Lisbon and Macau, Zhuhai. And in regards to my work background, Marisa knows it quite well, but just and a few of the designers that we already also know each other, but just to share a little bit. So I'm the co-founder of WinesWeb, which is a creative agency that was mainly dedicated to fashion, design, and also the production of events. I'm also co-founder of an association which is called Plus 853 Cultural Association. It's an association based in Macau that has already cooperated and received the seed grant from Design Trust, mainly for the conference that we organized during one of the editions of our cultural festival, where Marisa were able to moderate also the talk with Charles Landry. And this festival has 16 years and has been mainly happening. It started very small in the neighborhood where we used to have our shop from our brand Lines Lab, and then started to expand a little bit. And these last years had been happening in Macau, Zhuhai, and Shenzhen, with this idea also of embracing the Pearl River Delta, also considering that we moved from Macau to Zhuhai, so also bringing our work and our activities also with us. And so to talk a little bit about the object, the product, the sleepers that I've developed during this challenge from Design Trust and Marisa and all the team from Design Trust. Tufa is a pair of sleepers. It started with a cooperation between me and an artist based in Portugal. Her name is Margarida Jardim, and it was mainly conceived with the idea of family and comfort, and bringing even they look a little bit like clouds. So the idea of having comfort and your feet quite cozy, like in the feeling that you are walking over clouds, and that's why also they are blue. And when this challenge from Design Trust came to, and another thing that is important to mention is that this is also a cooperation with a factory and a brand based in Portugal, in a small town called Manteigas in the north of Portugal, where Isabel Costa, which is an amazing woman and very not only sensitive to design, but also a good, very clever entrepreneur. She created this brand to recover this factory from the 19th century that works mainly with a very specific wool, which is called burel, a very traditional material from Portugal. And when we were developing these sleepers, I thought it was the perfect match with this factory and with their material. And when the challenge from Design Trust arrived, and we were in a very difficult situation, not only because of all the situation of the pandemic, and I was crossing borders between Zhuhai, Hong Kong, and Macau, trying also to understand where I should be locked down. And then finally I spent like 3 months locked down in Zhuhai. And for me, to be honest, I have to thank Marisa and Design Trust, because it helped me a lot, because even personally, I was in a challenge situation. So working with our hands and have a kind of a mental therapy that then you release with the work with the hands is perfect. And so I thought that it was a very challenging time. It still is, but we are more used to how we can defend and protect ourselves. But it's very important to take care of our mind, of our body, of our health. And that's why I thought it could be interesting to add this health issue on this first edition of the Tufa Sleepers, and add these small elements that the idea is that when you are walking, they can massage your feet at the same time that you are comfortable. You can also be working on your well-being. And
Thank
basically,
you.
that's it. Thank you so much.
Have a safe flight. We miss you too. And
Thank you. We'll
I'll
keep in
share
touch.
here. Thank you. Safe
Thank you.
flight.
Bye-bye.
Adam?
Hello,
Hi, Adam.
everybody. Hi, my name is Adam. I am originally from Slovakia, and at the moment my studio is based in Vienna in Austria, and I work in intersection of art, science, and architecture, while my long-term research focus is on airborne dust that is investigated through the environmental, social, cultural, and also political perspective. So what is airborne dust? Airborne dust is known to function as a carrier for many biological and chemical contaminants, including viruses that can float in the air for hours, days, or even weeks. And current pandemic revealed that urban areas suffering from high levels of air pollution are most hit by the spread of the virus. And this kind of toxification of air we breathe is almost invisible to our body, to our sensorium. And therefore, my dust catcher, the device I designed for this initiative, is exceeding our perception of this phenomena by rendering the local air condition. So the dust catcher is basically a very simple, foldable, and fully recyclable tool to collect airborne dust from the air. The nanomembrane is inserted into the folding paper device that materializes the particulate matter by collecting dust particles from the environment, and it basically transforms the invisible dust into visible and tangible objects we can observe with our senses. This device can be delivered to any local community where it can activate the static spectators to participants to actively participate in the process, and this should kind of start to form a new form of knowledge in understanding what kind of impact we are having on our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. That's great. It's Michael here. Michael?
Hey.
Hi. Thanks, Michael.
Hi. How are you doing? My name's Michael, and I have a studio in Hong Kong, and I've been working with Design Trust since the outset, really. And I think this was really a really nice opportunity to put into practice a few things that have been on my mind for a number of years. And I think kind of embarrassingly, 10 years ago, I started working on sex toys for a company in New York and did a big study of antibacterial products and different materials that you could use to self-cleanse. And I think that combined with the project we did for Schneider, where I realized that, we were designing plug sockets, and the volumes for the sales of these things is in the millions. So any sort of energy saving or any anything you do that can impact economy or ecology has a huge, it's a scalable thing. So I think combining those two things together made me think about what do we all use every day, all of the time, en masse, and it's door handles. What I decided to do with this was reduce the volume of material that was required, because door handles are sometimes these huge things with loads of metal. I used recycled metal to purpose the product. And this is a prototype, used laser to effectively create the surface. So I guess at the end of the day, it's an industrial design product, but it's inspired me to do something that could actually have an impact long term. And I think even now already we've had a lot of interest in taking this into production, expanding it into a range. So it's been quite pivotal, really, just getting engaging with Design Trust and doing what I do. So yeah, I think I will keep myself under 3 minutes. So thank you for the opportunity for getting this done. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. And Chiang will be sharing. Are you here, Chiang?
Yes, I'm here. Hi. Yes, hi, my name is Chen. I'm with Collective Studio in Hong Kong. So we are a architecture design office, and it's led by Betty, Juan, Katya, and myself, 4 directors. And thanks for inviting us to participate in this very fun project. So our piece is called Rub Me for 20 Seconds. And maybe I'll just read a very quick line from our write-up. Rub me for 20 seconds contrives to substitute a fragment of human touch to the current critical act and excessive need of hand washing. So we tried to have a bit of fun with this piece. We sort of had a very quick design charrette sort of, and at this point in time, we were all actually working separately at home. So obviously we couldn't really come together to make something, but we did have this idea of doing something a bit fun, trying to also think about the different issues at hand, you know, trying to keep clean, but then also you're not allowed to touch anybody anymore. So how can we kind of bring those kind of different themes together? So we thought, hey, let's just make soap, but the soap is in the shape of a hand, and that's something we have to do every day, is to wash our hands with soap. But in that act, we can then, you know, have a bit of a sense of human touch. And I think what you actually see is very much part of the process and not really a final product. And we're all a bit tickled by the way it came out. And in fact, the original idea was to have sort of one piece, and that we would each separately experiment with what we had at home to make hand soap. So what you see here is actually 3 different processes of making a hand soap. The first one is using a mold for latex gloves, and used soap was actually melted and sort of put over sort of this cast for the latex glove. The second is actually a rubber glove that that Katya had at home, used for cleaning, and she literally just poured used soap into this rubber glove, and then when she took it off, this is sort of what you see. And the last piece on the right is really done with more traditional methods of casting. It's a silicone mold. I casted my own hand, and that's sort of what you see. And in the end, we thought, hey, it was actually more fun to see all three different processes and the way it all came out, than to sort of show one final sort of object. So this is sort of what you have here. And yeah, and thanks for letting us have so much fun. Thanks, Marissa.
Thank you, Chi. I think it was restoring skin hunger. I think that was something your team was trying to evoke. And Sky Utaka, Sarah and Utaka Yano.
Hello, thank you, Marissa, Aric, and the design team for hosting this event. We're Sarah and Utaka. We trained at the Bartlett in London, and we're now based in Hong Kong. Also previously Design Trust seed grantees. We practice in the field of architecture and have a diverse and multidisciplinary process-led approach to design. Today we'll focus on a specific area of our research, which is an ongoing investigation of spatial conditions through creating kinetic installations in our studio. So just like today's design dialogue, we're physically apart but somewhat connected through online platforms where colleagues, friends and families across all generations and across all continents and time zones are connected through screens. So our proposal, Light Motions, is a direct response to this global shift in online communication. And for some time, we've been exploring through making of installations how design technology can begin to shape or augment a more emotional response between people and space. And with our device, can we work with technology to evoke a positive emotion and promote interconnection and social interaction?
So when we were trying to respond to the brief and in process of making this imagery for this design collab, we had two speculative ideas behind the image. And one is about use of computer vision to explore the link between human emotion, such as a smile, sad faces, to a kinetic lighting device that are dynamically synchronized to kind of link the spaces around two groups of people who are physically separated into different places. So it's about kind of use of computer vision technology, facial recognition kind of algorithm, and connect that with a spatial device. The second idea is again about looking at kind of emotions, but more the second idea is about kind of exploring a kind of nostalgic feeling that are specific to locality in Hong Kong. So for some time, we have been actually exploring using bamboo mesh that we purchased from Shamshui shop, which are basically used for popular to make a basket for popular local dish dim sum. So it's about kind of using a specific material to play with a kind of sense of nostalgic feeling. It's about reinterpreting a kind of found object to make new design.
And bringing it back to the brief, the idea of homemade and small scale presents a really interesting scenario and a kind of sudden immediacy, particularly in the private space of our domestic environment. And it's a small prototype, but it has a lot of potential in the bigger context of architecture, how we balance technology with materiality and craft, and how we can evoke emotion through memory within a single device. So like all creative responses in this micro initiative, it's exciting to really collectively consider design's potential in creating a positive impact in our daily lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah Utaka. Achong, Soulworm.
Yeah, Achong is here. Yeah. Hi, this is Soulworm. Me and my friend, my learn, we create a studio called Tactility. We mainly focusing on the paper and some geometric form to create some different projects from a small objects to a bigger installation. Thanks for Design Trust. Yeah, in this project, we create a kind of a project called Escapism, which is a quite personal feeling to reply this kind of topic. During that few months, we all has been isolated to protect ourselves to about the virus thing. And then I think people think it's quite annoying and boring because you can't see each other. But I think at the same time, this is a good chance for us to just talk with ourselves. It feels like when you're doing the diving and then in the deep water, you can't hear anything, but you can hear the water wave and your heartbeat as well. So maybe it's quite similar feeling on that. And then you can, at that moment, maybe you can just escape to your own space to talk with yourself, to ask what's happening and what you're looking for in the future. So in this project, we're using a paper to create a paper helmet to simulate the situation for the diving. But once you put on the helmet, it's quite interesting because we work with a sound designer called Wendy, and then she is quite cool for some sound device. And then we will talk about this project, and then she just says, why we don't just put on the helmet and then you can start to talk with yourself. And then at that environment, there will have some lighting in front of your eyes when you speak, and then the light will on and off. It's a kind of a self-dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas, Annie, Lydia?
Hi. Thank you, Marissa, Aric, and Dean for this interactive platform today, for us creatives to continue inspiring each other and stay connected. And today I'll be speaking on behalf of my team formed with Lydia Ratoy and Nicholas Patel, former Design Trust Seed grantee, and both of whom work at the University of Hong Kong Faculty of Architecture. Our project is We Can Jump This High, and it is a playful response to the red and white barricade tape seen around Hong Kong during the COVID-19 lockdown. And it also directly responds to the curatorial theme of everyday challenges of COVID. And back in early April in Hong Kong, the Leisure and Cultural Services Department barricaded all public parks and sports spaces with these types of plastic tape for stringent social distancing measures. And we saw these tapes as a visual manifestation of safety measures for engineered pandemic restrictions. Having seen these and how they were captured ubiquitously online on news and blog sites, also platforms such as Instagram, all of which offered us a very rich departure to point to the question or to question the historical significance, usage, form, and function of these barricade tapes. So we primarily took inspiration from this restriction and translated them into a tangible object of play. We adopted a multi-layered production process for this project, experimenting with 3D plastic printing to create the molds, in which we then poured concrete into. And the final product is a jumping rope cast out of colored concrete. Its deliberate weight and impracticality highlights the multi-layered dimensions of the original tape, which is lightweight, malleable, and socially significant. And in comparison, our casted object is heavy, dense, and an object of play that encourages social cohesion. So this jumping rope prototype, what it intends to do is to spark a playful discourse about our challenging times currently.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks indeed.
Great. Frederick, and are you here with
Hi.
us?
Hello, everybody. My name is Frederick, and I run an industrial design studio here in Tsim Sha Tsui in Hong Kong. When Marissa sent me the invitation to participate in this initiative, at that moment, about 1 people out of 3 in the world were under some form of lockdown. And that put us to think that, well, how can we get rid of all the kilos of all the home cooking that we had to do now? And how to get rid of the stress of being cooped up with your wonderful family on a small space. So together with Paulina, with my wife, we said like, well, nothing better than a good workout. Well, also the gyms were closed and almost nobody has workout equipment at home. So we basically adopted the same way we work in the studio here. Is like, how can we make quick prototypes with what we have lying around? So the first thing that we found was the simple rubber bands. And we wanted to create the resistance band that you find in the gym. So how can you go from a small object to a big object? And then we had our smallest daughter, Nisha, that went like, oh, I got an idea. So she went off to her room and you heard like bang, boom, bam, and she was digging through her stuff. And she came back and she dug up her old loom kit. So she started looming away instead with the very small loom ones with the big rubber bands. And she made an endless strip that we then doubled up in order to create enough resistance. And that's how we created the resistance trainer. And then the next idea was to make a skipping rope. Well, the only rope we found in the house was the little cotton rope, obviously way too light to do skipping. And then Paulina went like, oh, well, I can crochet something thicker than that. Crocheting is kind of her therapeutic thing together with cookie baking. So she needed a tool, so she took a piece of bamboo and with some barbecue skewers and some masking tape, she created her tool and she started crocheting away. So she was out of the picture in the corner of the sofa. And then over dinner, we felt like, well, we should create a holy trinity while we're at it. Like we're missing one more. And obviously we had the bottle of water on the table and it was like, well, that could be actually the dumbbells. We have small ones, big ones. And yeah. Now we had all the components, but not finished gym equipment yet. And there the idea came up like, why don't we use bamboo? It's everywhere around, it's natural, but also it is a symbol of resilience and resistance, showing that if you hang in there, also this bad period will pass. And that's how we created the final gym set, basically. So with $80, Hong Kong dollars, of course, everybody can now create their own gym set at home with everything that they have lying around. So thank you, Marissa. We really enjoyed this because it really became a family activity. Even the helper when she passed by, she saw us busy, was like, oh, can I join in? So she joined in as well. So really everybody made it together. So it's a gym set really made by family for family.
Thank you, Frederick. And at the opening last weekend, I was so pleased to see you pour water in to make the 1 kg, well, to be really too lightweight.
Yeah, no,
but thank you.
There.
Yes. And you, Wendy, thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yu Wendy Lau. You can also call me Yu. I'm a friend of Design Trust and nominated by Keith Tam for this meaningful campaign. And I'm currently living on a small island in Hong Kong, and I have my studio here as well. So I create works that are inspired by nature and animals, and I do object design, art installation, and illustration. For my project, for this micro initiative, it's called Dancing with Nature. It's a small device and it operates like a metronome. The concept came from the dramatic changes and the uncertainties that we are all facing nowadays. And I think the pandemic has brought us tremendous anxieties and worries, and we are forced to practice social distancing, and our daily routine gets so interrupted. I think we need a more comfortable way to accept the new move, this new rhythm of life. So I have designed a metronome that takes inspiration from nature and her positive energy. And if you have a chance to visit the exhibition or watch my project video, this metronome actually gives a soft, repetitive beep sound that takes away all the distractions from you. The device works like a meditative tool. You can use it for practice every day, and it just makes us slow down, calm our mind, and it also helps us slowly pick up this new pace or new patterns of life that we are having. And I hope this project will give us more comfort and empower us to tackle all the negative emotions. And thank you once again, Marissa and Design Trust, for having us in this project.
Yeah, your project definitely needs to be experienced and real. And Natasha, are you here, Natasha, with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay, so my name is Natasha, and I'm Polish. I'm a Polish architect, but I'm based in Hong Kong. I'm actually currently in Poland, and my project Future Fossils is an experience actually that occurred in a way in a very non-designer moment of just being in nature and finding out that among natural elements there is vast there's just a lot of construction waste and elements that are in a way post-design products that shouldn't be around when we are experiencing nature, but somehow they come back, they circulate back, and they pretend to be nature. So I decided to collect some of them and arrange them in a way to disconnect them from that notion of construction waste in a way so that we start to sympathize with them. You can see them arranged by color, by size, and also mixed with natural elements such as pebbles or reef shells. So after that, I decided to arrange them into smaller compositions and cast them in clear resin in order to make it look a little bit like as if it was suspended in iceberg, for example, and experienced by people or some other species exploring, exploring the world millions years ahead and imagining that being, what we leave behind and what becomes the future fossil replacing what we found as mammoths and other elements. So in a way, this project, in my perception, doesn't really focus on that resin object. It's more of a moment and noticing actually that the methods of buildings and the materials, that technologies that we use in buildings are not really reusable or degradable, and in a way, when we don't pay attention, they come back and pretend to be nature. And my intention would be to point to that and help to imagine for how long it will be around. Yeah. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natasha. I'm surprised you're in Poland. I just saw you in Hong Kong a few days ago, so you managed to escape.
Correct.
Okay. Manuel, Korea, are you here with us? Manuel is also based in Macau, and I believe he might be stuck somewhere, but he has been much investigating the role of water and consumption and sustainability. And due to lockdown, has been also researching and devising ways to develop water consumption and water usage in various strategies. So hopefully he will join us back in a bit, but we can move on to the next speaker. That'd be great. Thank you. Shuyan. Hi, Shuyan. You might need to unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Everyone can hear, right? Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Shuyan from AM Studio, AM Architects. And I'm now in Shanghai, and my office is in Hong Kong with two other partners, Calvin and Bob. And AAM actually stands for Architecture as a Medium. So we believe that architecture can be anything, and it can be a medium for communications. It can be a medium which we can walk with all lives. So we not only do architecture, we do architecture in China and in Southeast Asia. We also have been doing also a lot of installations, interior designs. We've been participating in design weeks, and also we were supposed to go to Milan, but eventually it didn't happen, and we hope to see each other in Milan next year. So this time we are thinking of something new. We come across with a bit of product design, and what we did is we've been thinking of having families working together. And during the COVID-19, a lot of parents are frustrated, they are anxious, and also kids are being locked down, and they need space, and they need games to play. And a lot of parents, including my two other partners, are really stressed up in the office especially. So we're thinking of doing something for them. And the parents are also drinking a lot during the COVID, during the lockdown. So they have probably gathered a lot of cans. And we're thinking of doing a compositions of being cans as building blocks. And we have been creating a kind of like connectors, which is 3D printed. And when you collect a lot of cans, and then with this connectors and then also rubber bands, you can actually make a lot of different kind of puzzles, almost like a 3D puzzle of it. And these connectors becomes a kind of media which you can allow your kids to play around. They can also build up like a dock in the screens, or a house or tanks or whatever they can in a room. And it doesn't save space, and the whole idea is actually combining sustainabilities with play as well. So in the meantime, when people are trying to also spend time at home, they could also allow their kids to have fun, and especially use up the aluminum cans. And in the end, you can still get all these things recycled. So it's a learning process. We are also architects learning how to do product design, but it's also a learning process which we allow the kids not only learn from the digital device, but they could also learn something by failing. I mean, it's never connecting so easily. So that's my presentation. Thank you, Marissa, for the invite, and hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shuyan. And Aaron from Nap Studio.
Hello, so I'm Aaron Zhang from Nap Studio. We run an architecture studio based in Hong Kong, though we're designing spaces and objects of every scale. So our prototype for this project's name is Tactile Family. It all started during the period of intensive lockdown when I hear my neighbor and kid screaming every now and then every day. That's when I understand that the stress built up subconsciously due to the isolation is so serious, especially for children, that we all have certain difficulties in letting it out. So we thought about the idea of crafting tools for everyone as a response in order to alleviate such emotion. Inspired by sensory toys for children's therapies, this set of gadgets are composed of a sundry of materials in terms of varying texture, warmth, and grain, and etc. With carefully crafted forms, holding these pieces in your hands is just a sense of pleasure through the tactility. And more than just tactility satisfaction, we also picked a local camphor wood with satisfying wood scenes to calm us through smell. And also finally, also wanted to have them to be visually satisfying and cheerful. That's why we added facial features in creating them as a set of family collectibles. So this is only a rendering, but we have the real pieces in the exhibition. So hopefully Aric could visit and hold them a bit and smell it. Thanks. Thanks, Marissa.
Thank you, Aaron. We actually had a couple of people visiting this morning who was extraordinarily excited with your tactile family. And Anishka, a lot of children have been coming to the show, playing with yours. So welcome. Great to see you again. It's been a long time.
Yes, thanks, Marissa. Hey, everyone. So I'm Anishka Vendrell, and I work as a research lead at People's Architecture Office, an architecture studio that's focused on design for social impact. We're based in Beijing and Boston. I'm actually currently away on a holiday in a small village in rural Anhui called Yingchuan, so not in Beijing at the moment. Our design for the Critically Homemade initiative is called the Learning House, and it came out of us wanting to do something related to recent work we've done around school design and education. And so late last year for an exhibition, we created a very large-scale drawing of a conceptual city called the Learning City, which embodied various ideas on education that we were exploring, such as learning through play, self-directed learning, community connections, social engagement, and so on. And so we reflected on this and on the fact that during a lockdown, all the schools had closed and everything became centered around the home, with a lot of parents basically all of a sudden needing to take care of and entertain their kids. So we looked at making an activity kit for kids to do at home on their own, symbolically incorporating this learning city inside the encasing of the home. So it's ultimately an origami folding kit that you can fold into the shape of a house, which actually also resembles one of our well-known house designs, the plug-in house. And when you unfold it, you have the learning city on the inside that you can give color to, and you can hopefully improve and make it better in your own way. There's also actually a level of difficulty to the folding, so that kids actually can be occupied for some time trying to figure out how it actually works. We had some fun with this in the office as well. While they're also exercising their fine motor skills at the same time. So as well as a way to keep children occupied, the project is intended as a metaphor for how, for many people, all of life is compressed inside the home during lockdown. It's a place that we should cherish and work with in a creative way, so that our imagination and the world outside can flow into it. And so basically we can keep learning while we do that. Okay, yeah, that's it. Thanks so much, Marissa and Azine as well, also for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all the participants. We actually have another 50 6 prototypes that I would love to share, but unfortunately we don't have too much time, and we wanted to engage in the process to share in dialogue with our very special guest curator friend, Aric Chen, and invite him to respond. What's been quite extraordinary, before I invite Aric Chen to join and also open up the discussion, is the design community, patron community, corporate communities, to all sorts of communities coming together. And you'll see this wonderful list of friends beyond Hong Kong and the region coming to create really wonderful, precise provocations, and to new collaborations from as far as Melbourne, Thailand, and also from the Netherlands, etc. And what I wanted to also share is, we have now, which has been quite organic, and as all of you were sharing your prototypes, we've had a lot of audiences and new audiences coming on board to look at some of the prototypes physically in the space, and has responded very positively to support. So what's been quite exciting is we will now have a few design brands coming on board to select prototypes to help manufacture in the future. We also are hoping to engage more educators to come through to test some of these very provocative learning devices. So it's been a really extraordinary ecosystem that we've been building, and thanks to all of you for participating. So Aric Chen, it would be absolutely great to hear your views, questions. We have a very dynamic group together. Thank you again, Marcus, Yufan, and also Benedict from the Zine platform for supporting us. And it's really great to have this opportunity. So Aric Chen, curatorial director extraordinaire from Design Miami, and a dear, dear friend. I really miss hugging everyone and seeing everyone. And it's just really a great moment to have you be part of this. So Aric, do you want to kick off some of the discussions and questions?
Sure. Well, again, thank you, Marissa, and thanks to all the designers. Once again, another really wonderful project from you, Marissa, and Design Trust. This was my first time seeing all of these projects, and it's really quite incredible, because when Marissa first told me about this initiative back in, I think, May or whenever it was, and she told me the brief, it was a typical Marissa brief that placed a lot of demands and criteria and so on were built into it, and I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. But I mean, of course, it's turned out really incredibly well. And I'm really, I have to say, this really is one of those moments when you sort of regain or you're reminded of your faith in design and designers. I mean, it's really impressive how all of the designers have responded to this brief. All of you in various while in various states of lockdown. I mean, when I first came back to Shanghai in March and did my what was then mandatory 2-week home quarantine, I was watching K-dramas. And you guys were meanwhile coming up with all this stuff. But you guys were exercising, Frederick, with you and your whole family. I was teaching myself how to make grilled cheese sandwiches, which is not so hard to make. And you come up with these incredible projects that are really diverse. I mean, some are more sort of poetic, some are more poetic and reflective, some are sort of more humorous and maybe even subversive, some are more kind of pragmatic and solutions oriented, and yet what they all share in common is this very sort of deep thoughtfulness and most importantly a kind of empathy, an empathy for others, and a deep understanding of the very human impact of what's happened, both on an individual, group, and societal, and even global level. I actually, though, I mean, you know, a few of you have sort of brought up, well, I'll say one more thing and then I'll start asking you guys questions. You know, what's also really great about these projects is that while they all do respond to the brief and they've all been created in this very unusual context of the pandemic, almost all of them have a broader resonance, right? I mean, like if you looked at any of them, you wouldn't necessarily say, oh, this is just about the pandemic. You know, when the pandemic first started, there was a sort of and the whole world sort of mobilized, including the design community. There were a whole flood of proposals sort of addressing the pandemic. And, you know, they were all very well intentioned, but of course, many of them may have been very sort of overly reactive. You know, there were proposals that that were kind of premised on this notion that the particularities of the pandemic situation were a kind of permanent state, right? So you had all these sort of social distancing projects and so on and so forth, and what's great about you guys, these projects here, is that you've really sort of taken what's happened now as a sort of moment of reflection to create projects that you can see having like a longer term life, you know, both during and beyond the pandemic. And as has been said many times, you know, this pandemic has maybe not so much changed fundamentally the world as it has changed the world by accelerating processes that were already underway and bringing many of the phenomenon that are confronting us as societies and a planet into sharper relief. So on that note, I wanted to kind of maybe ask all of you, you know, as Frederick, going back to Frederick, as he mentioned, this project started when 1 out of 3 people on the planet were in some form of lockdown. Now, since then, things have sort of, you know, different places have different situations at different times and have responded differently. And I'm wondering, though most of you are based in Hong Kong, not all of you are, and you certainly have colleagues in other parts of the world. I'm sort of wondering how you're thinking through this design process changed as the nature of the various lockdowns and our understanding of them changed, because it's been a good May, June, July, August, September. It's been a good 5 months now since this all began.
Is Frederick here? Would you like to respond? Yes.
Yes, no, the thinking definitely changed. I mean, in Hong Kong, we were not as affected, I think, as in many other parts of the world. We were never really closed at home. But of course, talking to my family in Belgium, to our friends in Italy, actually through our friends from the Domus Academy from when I was studying in Milan, we did a party together at one point, virtually online, and everybody was sharing their experiences. Everybody was living the pandemic, from Latin America to Canada, to really everywhere. And it was clear that it was having a big impact, and particularly for the people that were stuck at home. So in that sense, it was much easier to enter into the mind of people that are stuck at home and what it is to live like that. While we in Hong Kong, luckily, we have been largely spared of that kind of prison kind of conditions.
Yeah, maybe, well, actually, Marissa, we should probably reiterate that there will be time for questions from the audience. And so any audience members, please send questions in via YouTube or Facebook, and we'll definitely try to address as many as possible. But maybe we should go to Joel and Queenie, first by giving them an extra shout out because they're in Boston and it's 5:40 in the morning there right now, and they've been with us for more than 2 hours already. So first of all, thank you for making this special effort. I mean, your project probably addresses the pandemic most directly, right? With this sort of very kind of tongue-in-cheek social distancing tape measure. I mean, for me, I sort of interpret the kind of the wit of your project, these sort of four different tape measures, as reflecting the sort of ambiguity of the rules and how they keep changing. I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about? Oh,
sorry, I
yeah.
just decided to share to remind everyone. I love you, but I need to keep a safe distance. Here it is.
Yes, so I think this is born about, well, I'm from the UK and then Queenie's from Hong Kong, and we've just relocated to the US. And I think we recognize that in this circumstance, everybody's doing things differently and each country has their own restrictions. And I think this is really what we wanted to reflect on, because at the end of the day, the pandemic's a global issue, but we're all approaching it differently and in a segmented way. And I think our project just wanted to make a critical statement and say, we need to think about this collectively. Like, it should be a single tape, but everybody's doing their own thing and trying to like one up each other. And this is something we wanted to contradict, I think.
Cool. Yeah, like how did the sort of design change for some of the other, you know, some of the other designers in this group? I mean, like I'm curious to know how maybe your initial ideas back in May may have been different than what you wound up with as the situation changed or didn't.
Did you want to point to anyone in particular?
Let's see, eeny, meeny, miny,
or even Anishka she's been a global nomad usually, but now back in a village in China. I'd love to hear that.
Sure. Actually, well, when we actually, yeah, our idea kind of did have an evolution in the sense that we, when we first received the brief, we were actually still thinking about ways. So we've been working for some time on this design called the plug-in learning loft, and it's like it's a design kind of spatial design that fits into the classroom as a type of kind of modular furniture, but really occupying kind of a space with the second floor. And during lockdown, actually, one of our partners, James in the US, he was stuck at home with his kids. And so he made one of these DIY plug-in learning lofts. And so when we heard the kind of open call critically homemade, we initially thought of that to somehow kind of use that or portray that idea. But then we actually also ended up with the limitation of the brief, which was the size limitation. And so then we thought of actually for a long time, okay, so how do we go from that idea of kind of this kind of DIY structure that you can make inside your house? Do we then do it as a kind of instruction kit on and make that the instruction something that you can play with and color in? And so then we got to the idea of coloring in, and then we went back to kind of other work that we'd been doing. So this the Learning City drawing that we'd made for this exhibition. And then to kind of look at, okay, can we use that in some way? And then from there on, really look at, okay, maybe let's focus then on the actual kids' activity and what kids can do. And so actually to occupy time as well for children. And so that's kind of how the idea initially evolved.
Yeah, no, it's also been fascinating, Aric, this notion of cultural specificity coming through. And of course, we're all globally facing, if not similar challenges, but a couple of things that when I'm looking at all of your faces and actually reviewing the last few months of all the processes coming through, you get a really strong sense of cultural connection, but also disconnection. We had one extraordinary architect designer based in Thailand, Bangkok, who created a series of colored masks because of her grandmother who was ill. And I didn't realize in Thai culture, each day of the week is represented by a different color. And she created these kind of beautiful masks with the inscription of Thai language and wore it herself to also communicate the strength of that day for an elderly member who was going through some difficulty in health. So I think that kind of specificity of internalization, but also a way of understanding how other people are living and cultures has also been quite extraordinary beyond the kind of global waves. And so this has been a really nice way to present it from a kind of cultural Chinese, Hong Kong, Asian perspective also beyond the global, which is quite specific to our region. And you have really extraordinary designers like Thierry Chow, who's a feng shui designer, partnering first time with her artist husband to create a really extraordinary drawing and object, looking at balance and calmness too. So I don't know, I just thought that could be also another way to look at the specificity of the prototypes that are responding to the pandemic in different ways. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Does anyone else want to say anything about how this process may have evolved for them as the situation evolved? No? Maybe we can ask sort of how this process may have, may or may not have changed your approach to design. I mean, like, I know this is a big question. I don't know, Chiang of Collective, I have to say, you along with Joel and Queenie had had one of the funniest names for your project, Rub Me for 20 Seconds. I don't know if it was on purpose that they put you after Michael Young, after him talking about his work doing sex toys, but but it worked somehow. I mean, you know, this, of course, I know collectives work very well, and we know that you guys, one of your strengths is your sort of conceptual rigor, but this project may have been a little bit outside of what we might normally think of your work as being. I mean, do you see this as having any sort of influence on how you guys think?
Well, I think, yeah, indeed, it was a little bit almost outside of our comfort zone, but I think we just ran with it. We didn't have so much time, and so part of the drafts were in the end the final products, which, you know, as architects, you're not so used to. You spend so much time sort of crafting the final product, but in this case, we said, okay, guys, we have to turn in something, and what is something that we can do quite quickly, separately at home. And I think one thing that what we got out of it is that we should actually build even more models. We should use our hands a little bit more. We really appreciated the title of homemade. So we really kind of took that on as, okay, guys, we should do it ourselves with our own hands, as opposed to sort of a lot of times you default to sort of more you know, methods that we're used to now with 3D printing and so on. We thought, okay, let's try it ourselves without an intern's help or, you know, something. So that was a lot of fun, and because there were several of us that were doing it simultaneously, we also have this very fun, hilarious sort of WhatsApp series of conversations. So sending all the things that we were doing at home back and forth, and we look back on that now, and it's a really fun record of that kind of design process that happens through WhatsApp when you can no longer sort of be next to each other in a studio. Yeah.
Cool. You know, soil worm, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
You know, what was interesting about your project that stood out was, of course, you know, most of the projects deal with how to encourage sort of or facilitate interaction between people, whereas yours was more about looking inwards. I think this paper helmet with sound, and I think you referred to the point as being to create a kind of self-dialogue. And I'd like to just maybe ask you to talk a little bit more about that, because you know a lot of the discussion since COVID has been about, you know, now that we're sort of separated from one another in to varying degrees. You know, it's all about, you know, trying to create connections. But I think what's lost sometimes is also the value of being alone.
Yeah, I think something like for this project, because during you know Hong Kong, everything is very very busy and fast. They're looking for a project maybe for a week or 2 weeks later, something like that. But during that kind of a virus time, we don't have this kind of projects. So people just calm down more. And at the same time, that means we will got more time to think about doing the development and the research. So at that moment, something like at the beginning, we don't know what happened. We just think, hey, there's a less projects coming to our studio, and everything is just slow down. And once a day, and then we just talk with my my teammate, what should we do if we don't have projects anymore? Then maybe it's a time to just review or just we think about our direction. Then it gave me a chance to just hey, why don't we just put this concept in this project? And then we talk with the sound artist. At the beginning, we just got a very boring idea. I want to have a hammer with some wave sound inside that make the people can enjoy the own time. But then the scientist, Vanessa, just asked a very interesting question. So if you are doing something like interactive, so why don't you just let the user to using that kind of experience to ask themselves or just try to talk with themselves to create a dialogue? And because normally Hong Kong people, they don't like to do that because everything is very everything is in no time, so we don't have enough time to just rethink ourselves. So therefore, we just put this kind of a message in the piece. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, Aric Chen. One of our things was to build new relationships with our community. It's been extraordinarily stressful. So actually, the other evening, we don't plan anything. We just do it. Just go for it. So actually, Soho Vanessa created a beautiful 5-minute experimental performance the other evening, and it was just extraordinary on top of Elaine's flying phoenix interactive carpet. And there was just a stunning moment where you actually had different individuals who might not actually have that response come together, and at the same time virtually create commentary on what is true isolation, especially if the standard of living in Hong Kong is 120 square foot spaces. Then what is the context of designing for the future if this is an experiment in itself? But at the same time, as you know, Chong's work has always been about reacting to the environment. So it's also nice to pair his work also with Elaine's work in the exhibition environment. And I was thinking, as you were asking and probing him, maybe Elaine can also share on that kind of particularity of craft and isolation and a way to express, because I think that has been an extraordinary project for all these designers to review their hands and less the digital world, perhaps. I don't know, Elaine, maybe just to throw you into this and get everyone involved.
Yes, Marissa, on the note of getting everyone involved, I think my prototype was very much on that sort of idea. I mean, I think I came on board in the very last minute because during COVID, I was very involved with my family. So I slowed down with my sort of work and project. But then on the very last minute, I mean, it was very privileged having time and came on board and said, yes, Elaine, we'll smallest hand tufted carpet for you if you have an idea to apply for that, with all the leftover interactive yarn. And actually during the quarantine moment, I kind of felt like I really want to share a piece of my own self with everyone that I never really had a chance, which is to showcase a bit of like hand weaving and how I meditate with my own craft skills. It really helps me to sort of focus with work. A lot of people, as Chen was saying, oh, in Hong Kong, everyone's talking about like, I have no time, really, really busy, and always in a rush. And weaving is right at the opposite spectrum. You must concentrate. You have to calculate to every single positions and focus in order to do every single picks for the weave. So on a very small object, it was a very good way to demonstrate how I can focus and meditate myself through craft. And also, I think it's also one of the things in Asia and Hong Kong in particular, it used to be very well known and very popular as a family object to have a handcrafted object. But I mean, with all the industrializations and digitalizations, the values of craft, yes, there is there, but it's more and more difficult to be seen. So to be more realistic, I just combine the handcraft and the digital craft together. It's the first time for me to to 3D print like a mini hand loom, but in a fan shape, so I can and use that to weave together. But talk about improvisations, it's almost like I wanted to have the idea of a handheld band, and then one day I was actually really quite tired, and after I molded the 3D printed structure, I was sort of leaning on top of my prototype, and then Marissa saw me the other day, so this is not a fan anymore, is it? And I was like, well, it's actually my little mini pillow that we don't get my head on the table, but we can actually armrest everywhere you want. Yeah, and this is the fun about this project, you know, like you can take it as seriously as you want to address a problem with pandemic, but also as a designer, it would be a really nice platform to share something that you want to share.
I guess what's also really nice, or sort of building on that, Elaine, is the sense of improvisation that all of you brought into this, right? Because I mean, the pandemic has forced all of us to improvise in different ways. Maybe going back to my question about how this has changed, may have changed your design process. Julie and Jesse, will you be working more with popcorn and and Rice Krispies in your ceramics?
It's not so much the experiments that have changed. I'd say it's the fact that ceramics don't have to be something static, something that you just can't handle, that you have to look at and be afraid to break, but more so engage with the material, with the texture, with what it could potentially be. That has significantly changed since we went on board with Design Trust last year, of trying to involve a community, creating interactive pieces that both children and adults are not afraid to handle and to play with. That's really changed everything for us.
I think, yeah, bringing it more back to the local community, maybe to reinvestigate one's history, or to explore nature in a different way, and to really just embrace play as something beautiful and fun. It's a great thing to do.
But popcorn, yes. Materials is also a problem for us in Hong Kong. Like, we can't import a lot of the materials since the pandemic started. So we were out of a kiln. It broke in February. We only had a mini test kiln, so it was perfect to make tiny prototypes, which was exactly what we needed to be doing for this project. And we literally had no imports of any of our porcelain or anything coming through. So recycled porcelain or anything we had on our hands was a necessity, and it kind of came through through our research and what we were playing with already before that for Design Trust. So just perfect time for everything.
Great.
Yeah, and it's just been actually extraordinarily fascinating to see. There's just a question coming through, Aric. Is it okay if I just, someone from Italy is saying hi to all of you? And says, thanks to all the designers for the great discussion. It's so inspiring. And do any of the designers plan to take their prototypes into the real world and develop them further? I think Julie and Jesse, you can see behind them in their studio was their original, skateboarding, scholarly rock projects, which I think they're going to be sharing with you. Were super heavy, playful, site contextually for a heritage building in Hong Kong from the 1940s. Unfortunately, because of all the lockdowns, they were meant to present this at the Milan Fair. And now, as a reaction, we're all thinking of ways to support each other. And so their prototype, which we hopefully will be announcing in 2 weeks, some companies such as Kapok, there's another really wonderful design studio, Color Living, Women's. A couple of people have really showed and expressed interest to support the designers, and also our non-for-profit by producing and supporting limited edition objects. So we're really hoping this process keeps mobilizing, and how we can come together to work together more internationally and also locally. But yeah, I just noticed something looks really oddly new behind you also, Jesse and Julie. Did you want to share something with us? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
The one right behind Jesse, the darker objects, yeah.
These are new iterations of the project we did for you last year on the Tiger Bomb Gardens, and you want to talk about it? Sorry.
Yeah. That's great.
Just keeping the research going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
there is a lot of, look, it seems a lot of, Aric, there seems to be a lot of ways to catalyze these designs further. And, we also have Aaron Zhang here from Nap Studio, who's also developed these extraordinary sensory toys that they've never actually ever produced. And having that ability also to find the time to test ideas has been a moment of reflection for ourselves in our own foundation, and how to accelerate making and crafting. So I hope that also expands and extends the questions. And Aric, would you like to involve a few more other designers in your questions and summaries?
Yeah, well, there's unfortunately for reasons of time, I don't think we're going to get to everyone.
Okay.
They're all. There's so many great designers with projects that I'd love to talk about. Natasha, Shuyan, Aaron, Xavier, Sarah, and Utaka, of course. But I guess really we should. Since we're kind of over time a little bit already, I think we should focus on encouraging our audience to have a closer look at all the projects, which I think they can do soon, right, Marissa? At the exhibition, if they're in Hong Kong, which runs until when again?
Well, actually, it's a prototype exhibition. We have one more day at our venue partners space in Soho House, Hong Kong. And the exciting thing is this is catalyzing quite organically into a series of other sharings with our partners. I mentioned to you earlier, Arnaud Castel, who's been running this extremely wonderful design select shop, has also recently come on board. He will be pledging support to a few of the designers' works. We have another hospitality group called ZS, Chinachem, Color Living, which is another extraordinary program who I believe I should not unveil, but I think they're very interested in working with you, Wendy's Dancing Nature. We have VSFG Group and also this wonderful team from Women Boss, who supports women design leaders to have opportunity to produce their work. So we have a growing community of interests, and we're hoping to launch online and offline these prototypes into reality, which answers one of the friends from Italy who's sending in these questions. So please, please, please do follow us. We're very excited and honored to have this opportunity to share with Design friends on this global platform. And we will soon also be sharing in Melbourne and London and also in Shanghai with an extension of the program. So hopefully we can grow a little community initiative out of this, little micro initiative. And as a non-for-profit, it's been an extraordinarily challenging time to also raise funds. We've been supporting over 125 projects and these parts programs. So we want to keep fostering innovative experimental ideas and keep our granting programs with our institutional partners fresh. And all these designers have donated and crafted objects that will also be entering into our future live and silent auction. So thank you to all of your participations and generosity. And yeah, I will close on this note and humbly say thank you. It's been a really beautiful, inspiring community platform for all sorts of friends around the world. So thank you. And thank you so much, Aric Chen. I hope you can fly over to Hong Kong. We have transformed our wonderful Design Trust logo from a very corporate blue to a rainbow of hope. I've also colored my nails, homemade, and really want to build a culture of inclusivity and diversity and go beyond borders and how design can really impact transformations across our city. There's so much divisive politics these days, but I won't go there. And really restore optimism and inclusivity in our community. So thank you, everyone. Design Trust, Design, and my design diplomats part of this program. So thank you, everyone, for joining, and I hope you all enjoy this sharing today. Thank you. And
thank you,
Sufan and Design, everyone, thank you so much. This is our first time doing this. And thank you.